There are many types of raviolis and many ways to serve them. Last episode, my friend and pasta master Luca Donofrio gave us an incredible lesson on making various types of ravioli. We cooked one of those raviolis in a brown butter and sage sauce, but I've got 4 more varieties of raviolis that I need to cook. So today I'm showing you some of the most soul-satisfying, classic, and quick sauces to serve with your beautiful ravioli whenever you make them. Let's start with the prettiest one of the bunch, gnocchi. Now here I've got all of my pastas, the tortellone, the tortelli, the agnolotti, and the gnocchi, or the round ravioli. If you want to preserve your ravioli, you have to freeze them quickly. You're probably going to need to watch the last video after this one, but stay here for now. These are called gnocchi. Gnocchi just means eyes, also known as girasole, which is sunflower. And the sauce that we're going to pair with these is a limone butter sauce, similar to like an Alfredo sauce you'd find in Rome. So all you're going to need is some butter, some lemon, and some Parmesan cheese. Of course, the pasta water is going to be an essential element to that as well. Now, since the pasta water doesn't have much starch in it, because we're going to cook a small batch, these are meant to be quick, so I'm just going to make them for one. So that pasta water is not going to have a ton of pasta starch in it. So this is what I like to do. Portion out my little raviolis, and I'm going to take a little bit of that 00 flour and just dust them. They're still frozen, but it's kind of like recreating the act of having just made these, dusting them with flour, and then throwing them in the pasta water. So that's gonna give us the starch we need to help us form the sauce. So I need a small pot of boiling water and then my 3/4 saucier, which I will not put on the heat yet. I'm just gonna take a ladleful or 2 of the boiling water, and I'm gonna use that to warm up the pot. Then to the salted boiling water, we're gonna add the gnocchi. We're gonna cook those for a few minutes until they float. And once the saucier is warmed up, I'm gonna pour that water back in because there's no starch in that water and we need starch. Now that the water is starchy, I'm gonna add another like half ladleful of the water, and then I'm gonna squeeze in a cheek of lemon juice. To the starchy water and lemon, I'm gonna start to slowly swirl in some cold butter and start to bring that sauce together into almost like a lemony buttery broth. Then we can fish out the gnocchi, add them straight to the broth with a little bit more cold butter, and just swirl that until it emulsifies. I'm gonna add just a touch of heat here, not too much, just a very low heat, and just work in that cold butter until a nice sauce is formed and those gnocchi are nicely cooked and have absorbed all of that flavor. Now we're ready to serve that up. So on a plate, I'm gonna sort of carefully arrange the gnocchi in a nice little pattern around the plate so you can see all of them nicely. Then I'm gonna pour a little bit of that butter sauce right on top, and then we're gonna grate some fresh Parmesan cheese, which is sort of gonna melt into the sauce and thicken it. And then finally, a little bit of lemon zest. It's rich, but it's balanced by that acidity. And what balances the acidity is the sweetness of that butter and cheese. It's an incredible combination, quick to throw together, and it's definitely one of the prettiest pastas you can make. Next up is the agnolotti del plin. Now, like I said, one of my favorite things to order on a weekly basis is a short rib agnolotti from a place called Burrata in Eastchester by me. Now, back in the day, Luca consulted on the pasta, and Luca actually helped consult on making this exact dish. So today we're gonna make the same one. That was short rib. This is a slightly different filling. Is a little bit of pork, a little bit of short rib, all sorts of good stuff like that, but it's close enough. So I've got them portioned out. I don't need to add any of the flour like I did last time. The water is nice and starchy now. Now they use Piave cheese. I'm using Parmigiano Reggiano just because that's what you might find a little easier. Again, some butter. They use a little breadcrumb on top, so I'm gonna use some panko, add a little texture on top, and then a beautiful balsamic vinegar. This is the one that I would recommend. It is on the pricier side, but I don't go through it quickly. It lasts a long time, and it is the best. Amazon will have it, Whole Foods has it, you can find it. Now, first thing for this recipe is we need to make some breadcrumbs. So to a small pot with some olive oil, I'm gonna add a little bit of panko breadcrumbs. I'm gonna season them with a little bit of salt and just cook them, moving them around constantly until they're nicely, evenly golden brown all around. Then get those into a paper towel to dry. Next to that, in a saucier over medium-high heat, add a knob of butter, get that melted, and then drop in the agnolotti. Again, cooking for a few minutes until they begin to float. The butter is melting. We're gonna season it with a little bit of salt. I'm gonna add a little bit more butter, and then we're gonna continue to allow that to melt while slowly working in some pasta water to turn it into a sauce. Once the agnolotti float, I'm gonna give them another 20 or 30 seconds just to make sure those edges are nicely cooked. Then I'm gonna transfer them into the pot, and I'm gonna toss them into the butter along with a little bit more pasta water. And as opposed to the previous recipe, we're looking for that butter sauce to kind of thicken and coat the agnolotti, glazing it, if you will. Once the pasta's cooked and glazed by the butter sauce, we can plate them. And with a stuffed pasta like this, I like to kind of line them up all at attention. It just kind of makes the plate look beautiful once they're all nestled together like this. Then we're gonna grate some Parmesan cheese on top. Then we can add the breadcrumbs, a little drizzle of some really good aged thickened balsamic vinegar. And that dish is ready to serve. The rich meat sauce and butter, and in this case now balanced by the acidity of the balsamic, the texture of the breadcrumbs, simply one of my favorite pastas. Now we got 2 more recipes to go, but I just ate 2 big plates of pasta. It's a lot of pasta for me. So the next pasta we're going to make is the tortelloni, and that's gonna be served with a pistachio pesto that we're going to make tomorrow. Now before we get into the next recipe, I need to get you eating healthy and save money thanks to our sponsor today, Hungry Root. Hungry Root makes eating healthy easy by sending you fresh, high-quality groceries along with simple recipes and essential supplements. After you take a quick quiz designed to get to know what you like and what your health goals are, they will build you a personalized cart with all the groceries you need with recipe recommendations so you can follow a recipe to make quick and healthy meals or just freestyle it like I like to do. Every order is fully customizable, which means all the suggestions for ingredients and recipes they make are fully controllable. So you can shop based on recipes or just shop for groceries for recipes on your own. I got all sorts of goodies that I'll use as a baseline to ensure that when I'm busy working and I don't have time to cook, I have something to eat quickly that I feel good about. I got some veggies, some jerky, things like fresh grapes, little snacks, and even fresh meats. I often forget to eat while I'm working until I'm dying of hunger, like for example right now. So I'll take my cheese and cracker snack and I'll blend it with a few other goodies like the fresh grapes and the beef jerky, make a little sandwich, and right there that bite will save my life. And I told you I'm about to save you money. So the first 100 people to use my code Not Another Cooking Show are gonna get 40% off their grocery order with Hungry Root. Use the link in the description or scan the QR code on the screen and use code Not Another Cooking Show to get your 40% off. Now let's get back into the recipes. So now it's the next day and my belly is empty, ready for 2 more pastas. And the next one we're doing is the tortellone. Just a larger tortellini. And to go with this pasta, we're serving a pistachio pesto. A normal pesto will do, which we've covered on the show, but a pistachio pesto with this is a nice little pairing. So we're gonna use a blender. Now I'm gonna take some pistachios. I'm gonna throw some in, about 6 ounces, or one of these little bags of roasted salted pistachios. First thing I wanna do is just blend it up a little bit, get them into crumbles because I'm gonna pull some of them out so I can use those crumbs as texture when plating in the end. The rest I'm gonna try and turn into like a smoother pesto. Now just save that for garnish. Now that I've removed some, I'm just gonna process them a little bit more, just so it's a little finer. Now I've got some basil. I'm gonna throw about a handful of leaves in. I'm gonna smash about 2 garlic cloves, throw those into the blender. I'm gonna cut a cheek of the lemon, squeeze that in, throw in some ice cubes to keep the color nice and bright, a little bit of salt, then we can run the blender and stream in olive oil until we get a nice, smooth, beautiful consistency. Then we can pour that into a bowl, we can give it a taste, and then make any adjustments that are needed. I think it just needs a touch of acidity. Once that little bit of additional lemon hits it, the whole thing goes from good to singing. Takes it from like a very pistachio forward flavor to sort of rounding it all out. And while this is a little thick, we're gonna use a little bit of pasta water to kind of just help it all come along into a beautiful creamy pasta sauce. So we've got our pistachio pesto, we've got some pistachios, and we've got our tortellone. Now for the tortellone, it's filled with just ricotta cheese and mortadella. And just like the other pastas, we're gonna drop them into salted boiling water and cook them for a few minutes until they float. Now you never wanna put too much heat onto a pesto sauce. So again, I'm gonna use the pasta water to just warm up my saucier. So it just kind of takes the chill off the pan and gets it nice and warm for the pesto. Once the pan is warm, I'm gonna pour that water back into the pot. And by now the tortellone should be floating. I'm gonna let them float for an additional 20 to 30 more seconds before I fish them out, add them to the saucier, and then begin to spoon some of the pesto over the tortellone, and then finish it up with a little bit of that pasta water just to make that sauce come together. And right before your eyes, you're gonna see that pesto transform into a true pasta sauce. And once the pasta is nicely cooked and coated in the pesto, we can plate it. And again, I'm just gonna wrap those tortellone carefully into a beautiful little circle and just try and make it look as nice on the plate as I can. A little bit more of that sauce right on top, some fresh grated Parmigiano Reggiano, and then a nice sprinkle of those chopped up pistachios. This is a heavenly dish. Spectacular. If you remember the sandwich I made the other week from Florence, the Antico Vinaio sandwich, this is all those flavors, the mortadella, the pistachio, all wrapped up in a tortellone. And that little bit of lemon balances it all out. That hits the spot. Now for our final pasta, we're making maybe the most soul-satisfying ravioli dish I can think of. We're taking the regular tortelli, or what might remind you of just a normal ravioli, whatever is the most common shape of ravioli to you. We're pairing it with a beautiful pomodoro sauce, or weekday sauce, which we haven't covered in a while. So today we can make like a quick, small, a la minute version of this using some beautiful Datterini baby Roma tomatoes. And all you're gonna need are the ravioli, a few garlic cloves, one of these 14-ounce cans of baby Roma tomatoes, or if you're making this for a bigger batch, use a regular 24-ounce can, and some fresh basil. And of course, Parmigiano Reggiano. So we're gonna use our trusty food mill, and we're gonna puree that can of muti tomatoes into a passata, or tomato puree. Then we're gonna smash a few garlic cloves. I need a little bit of basil, and I'm gonna separate the leaves from the stems so I can cook the stems with the garlic. Now on medium-high heat in my saucier, I'm gonna add about 3 tablespoons of olive oil to the bottom of the pan, and then I'm gonna throw in the garlic and the basil stem. What I'm trying to do here is infuse that olive oil with the garlic and the basil flavor. We can do that until we brown the garlic around the outside. They're thick, so they're not gonna really burn. And once we get a nice golden brown, we can remove the garlic and the basil, and then we can throw in our tomatoes. Season the tomatoes with a little bit of salt and then keep at a real nice simmer. If the sauce is spitting at you, you just want to lower the heat until it's not. And we just want to cook it for about 10 to 15 minutes until that sauce thickens and emulsifies with that flavored oil, and we'll coat the ravioli nicely. Drop the raviolis into the boiling water and cook for a minute or two until they begin to float. Once it's nice and thickened and seasoned well, we can tear in some fresh basil. Then once the ravioli are floating, I'm going to give them another 28 seconds or so to make sure the borders are nicely cooked, and then transfer them into the tomato sauce. And I'm just gonna cook them in the tomato sauce for a minute or two until the pasta is nicely cooked and the sauce is coating the ravioli, and then we can begin to plate. I like a little bit more of a rustic plating with these raviolis. Just kind of mound them into the center of the plate along with some of that beautiful tomato sauce, and then a little bit more of some fresh basil and a little bit of Parmigiano Reggiano, and then finally a drizzle of extra virgin olive oil to finish. This is the ravioli dish that satisfies my soul most. There is simply nothing better. And if you can make this, then you've reached Nona status. So if you haven't watched the previous episode, please go do that now. Otherwise, the recipe is going to be down in the description. That's all that I have today. I'll see you next time. Until then, take care of yourself and go feed yourself.